Yo, what's up? I appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you being here. Whether you're here live or after the fact, um, time is important, and it means a lot that you've decided to spend some of yours with me. So thank you. Uh, Normally, at this time, my friend John and I would be going live for our weekly podcast, the K and J Show, also known as the greatest show of all time. Sure, you've heard of it. Uh, but something unexpected came up, so we had to cancel. But John was very gracious and very encouraging and suggested that I try to do something. So I figured I would use this time slot to continue a project I'm working on, An Idiot and His Thoughts. Um, I want it to be a semi-regular, I don't know if I'd call it a podcast or just a dude talking. Uh, excuse me. Uh, where I just share my thoughts about pretty much anything to do with the world of filming stupid things. Excuse me. Last episode, I talked about the history of it, how I got started into this and my like-minded friends, um, like why you would even want to do this to begin with, um, and just some other little tidbits. This week, I wanted to talk about, or this episode rather, I wanted to discuss the different categories of stupidity within the umbrella of dumb. Uh, I think that there's a few distinct types of this humor, and I think that their differences, their nuances are important and worth noting. Now, this isn't going to be through the lens, oh, hey, what's up, Jonah? Didn't see you there. I am also slightly retarded, so it takes me a minute to realize that I'm looking right at something in front of me. Um, but hey, thanks for joining in, man. Um, this isn't going to be done through the lens of an advanced degree in the STEM field. There's not going to be any hard scientific lines. I think it's more you would know if you are in another basket, so to speak, by when you pass a certain threshold. I think it'll be pretty obvious, but just want to kind of give you my take on where the distinctions lie. I also wanted to, hey, what's up, Zach? Um, Appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining in. Um, I also wanted to maybe clear up a little confusion if you've taken any time to, meander around my channel. There's, uh, a lot of videos with idiovision as the title, but then there's also some that pop up with IWAC. And during the last episode, I talked pretty much exclusively about IWAC. So I want to kind of separate the two of those. The main thing is just time and place. Um, but we'll get there. I encourage you all to drink. Uh, Guinness is my preferred brew. Creamy. I love it. But I think, oh, before we get rolling, if there are any audio or video issues that you guys experience, please let me know. Um, I'm pretty new to all this. I have my phone here, so if you know me personally, you can reach out that way. Or I am monitoring this chat, albeit poorly. Trying to figure out this OBS stuff. John is usually the one who does all the clicking. Um, so just reach out with any problems you may be having, and I will do my best to attempt to solve them. Uh, Rum, but I don't really want to drink. Oh, nice. Well, that sounds fun. Getting sloppy with coworkers. Apparently, Jonah has a huge thing Friday night at work, so that'll be cool. I think a connecting thread with all these videos, at least for a while, is going to be Jackass, and I think rightfully so. I'm sure you could search it out. Uh, oh, cool. Apparently, things are good. Um, Thank you. Uh, you could probably research this, and you might be able to make an argument if you found something that predates Jackass, outside of Big Brother and CKY, of course. Uh, but I think it's pretty safe to say that those guys are the ancestors. You know, those guys are the OGs. If not, they're certainly the innovators and the most well known. I mean, Jackass is at this point a household name. People who aren't even into it know these people uh, through one avenue or another. And so I think one category of dumb is, well, for lack of a better description, whatever Jackass is doing. I think they've earned that right. I also think that that covers a lot of the bases, but I think there are a few more that need to be touched on. Uh, Jackass has a hell of a history, and they have done an enormous amount of filming that spanned several different types of footage, from everything from, I believe they call it man on the street, where they just have like somebody out in public and then a camera and getting reactions through various means. Um, they've done, very vulgar things where they like dive into a kiddie pool full of elephant shit, or, I mean, get into a porta potty and have it turned upside down, like a fully used one. That, I mean, that kind of speaks for itself. But they've also done some really hardcore things where, they've, as far as stunts go, like Johnny Knoxville is not a skater, and he has dropped in on a mega ramp, or at least a very large half pipe. So they've run the gambit of really crazy things. I mean, they had a guy in a casket that they pushed out of the back of a hearse, and just kind of made a mockery of like death. So, they really go for it. But I think if you follow along, you can find different distinct eras in their content. I think the show up into the original movie, I think, is one pretty obvious era. That's when they weren't well known. So like Johnny Knoxville could be out and about and people really had no idea who he was. Fast forward to today, and that is not the case. I think if you see him, you're looking for a camera at this point. Um, the second and third movie, I think, would be another era in and of themselves, because that's when they really transitioned into film instead of TV shows, and film being like theatrical releases. Um, so they were able to push the envelope in certain ways. They also were getting notoriety, so they had famous people, or more recognizable people involved in their projects, anywhere from athletes to entertainers to actors. So I think that is also a distinct era, and their footage kind of followed suit. I feel like their production value increased quite a bit. And then unfortunately tragedy struck, and Ryan Dunn was killed, and Bam went spiraling. And so between three and four, there was a lot of, I guess, bad blood between Jeff Tremaine, Johnny Knoxville, and then Bam. So that's why you don't really see him in the fourth movie. The fourth movie, took a different twist. They reached out to other people. And I don't know how you may feel about that. It feels different to me, but that's my opinion. It's not their opinion. in Jackass 4.5, Knoxville, Tremaine, and the third creator, Spike Jonze, they were discussing how they were a little apprehensive, but once they started filming with the new people, and got rolling, it felt like home for them. So I'm always of the idea that once the essence is gone, it's gone. I'll use bands, and it's not necessarily a good example because there's outside things like contractual obligations. People's finances are involved, so you know, got to feed your kids. And but like Lincoln Park comes to mind. Um, After Chester died, is it really Lincoln Park anymore? No shade thrown towards, I don't know her name, but like I've heard nothing but good things about her. But you know, again, that's their project, so they can dictate it how they want. But I've always been of the in the camp that once the essence is gone, you should hang it up, call it a different name. I did lose sight of that for a while, which we'll get to when I talk about IWAC and idiovision. I came full circle with my own uh, belief on that matter, so I that's where idiovision, one of the reasons we have idiovision and not a continuation of IWAC. But that's not to say that the new cast members in Jackass 4 didn't bring it. One of the stunts that I thought was just incredible was when they were doing this like silent game, they called it. A few of them dressed up like mimes, and they were going to be doing things that were very painful, and they were not to talk or make a noise. Rachel, she licked a taser. Like that's an mind blowing to me. I get chills every time I think about it, and especially when I watch it. She was awesome, and she did it more than once, and that's intense. I don't know if I have that in me. So it's not to say that they don't bring something to the table, but without the CKY part of Jackass there, Bam was in one thing, which happened to be one of my favorite bits from the movie. It's not exactly, I don't think because he was in it. I think it was just a really good bit. They dressed up as a marching band and marched into a rather large treadmill and were thrown into the wall, and pure chaos ensued. I think Steve-O was concussed or knocked out at least. Bam was in that one, and that was cool to see him there. I think we're going to see him in the fifth movie that's coming out. I think it's archival footage that was unreleased. I think it's more of an amalgamation that way of footage from the past. I think they are going to film some new stuff, but and that will also redefine this category, whatever Jackass is doing. Because for the fourth one, they um, it mainly became dick jokes and pranking each other, and that's fair. That's fine. Not so much my particular cup of tea. They are totally able to do what they want. They're the Godfathers. But I just a little bit of that is lost on me. I think there's great moments in Forever. I've watched it several times. I'll watch it several more times. But that's a direction that I wasn't too happy with. But they're very, very fluid in their footage, and each movie tells a different story for the most part. And so that would be one category. Another category for me is something, none of these names are, have much thought to them, but I would call this category hardcore slash shock value. That's that has to do with like very heinous stuff, as far as like hurting yourself. There's always a degree of risk in this type of footage. You're going to get hurt when you do this. If you film a fight scene for a Hollywood blockbuster with all the safety precautions and professionals there, you still run the risk of getting hurt. You probably are, right? But there may be a little bit more risk in this type of stuff, I think. But the hardcore shock value type of footage, that's basically what it's predicated on. That'd be like taking a razor blade to your tongue and then throwing salt on it. Just taking the heights of pain to, beyond a threshold. Uh, it also doesn't have to be pain. It can be like degradation or, vulgarness, absurdity to intense levels. One of the most, I'd say, famous of the hardcore dudes is Steve-O. Um, I thought I was sinning when I was watching CKY in my youth, but when I saw the Steve-O video for the first time, or videos, I thought demons were entering my soul. Like it was super, super rough stuff. And, it's not all about pain. There was one bit where they were outside of this venue, a bar or something, and there was a line of people trying to get in, and here comes Steve-O dressed up as a urinal, and he's getting people to piss in him, on him. Um, that that's super vulgar, you know. Did I laugh? Sure, but not again, not my cup of tea. Um, he's also done stuff where he's like nailed his hand, a hammer and nails, and like nailed his hand to a piece of wood. That's intense. You won't see that with us. At least I don't think. Um, there's a guy that I just recently found on social media. Social media is great, by the way, for discovering these things. Um, he goes by the name of Gucci Berry. He's this rather large, white, trashy guy, and his whole shtick is annihilating his testicles. I've seen him get a full-on golf swing to the balls. I think it was either a TV or a microwave dropped on his package. The first one I saw of him was he had an oar, like for a boat, and two dudes held his legs spread agape while he was on his back, and uh, he just another guy just took a full-on over-the-head swing right to his crotch. Um, if you're talking about that Gucci Berry dude, Jonah, I don't know. Perhaps. He's you wouldn't forget him if you looked at it once you see him. He's a real interesting looking dude. Um, one more example, and then we'll move on. Uh, Steve-O again did this. His newer stuff. It's kind of a cool concept. He has like a stand-up gig, and he'll make some jokes and he'll talk about this type of stuff, but he'll also show clips of recent footage that he's done. And one of his shows, I believe, ended on this bit that he called skyjacking, which already sounds just horrendous. But he went up in an airplane to do like a tandem jump. And if you don't know, that's kind of like where you start if you're skydiving. Your instructor is basically strapped to your back, and he makes sure that everything goes well. Well, Steve-O was there, strapped to this guy, and Steve-O was naked, and they brought a TV up so he could watch porn and pleasure himself. And before the moment of eruption, they jumped out, and he finished as they were falling to the ground. And yeah, like that again. I watch it, so what's that say about me? But that stuff is well, shocking. It's sure it has a place, but I think it's super niche. I don't think you'll see a lot of that, even within this rather narrow genre of filming. Um, I mentioned in the last episode this guy from the UK named Dom Jolly, and I think he's the perfect example of the next category, which again, names are not my thing. I would call it public reaction based on production value. Um, and this is kind of an interesting category within the umbrella because there's almost no risk of getting hurt because that's not the point. You're not, trying to, jump off of a building into a box or something like that. You're just trying to get reactions out of the public. And Dom Jolly was the master at that. I think our own Nathan Eveland was uh, also very good at that. He was definitely heavily influenced by Dom, but Dom Jolly had a group called Trigger Happy TV. I think that was in the 90s. And then just recently, I'd say within the last 10 years, they like rebranded or redid the show again, um, and just called it Trigger Happy. I haven't really watched too much of that, but I imagine it's much in the same vein. And this stuff was artistic, man. There was a lot of thought put into these things. Dom would start every episode of Trigger Happy TV somewhere where silence was valued, either in an elevator, in a movie. I think he even did one at Mass one time. And all of a sudden you would hear the legendary Nokia tone just ring out. Um, if you haven't heard that, you do yourself a favor and just look it up. It's it's such a cool little jingle. And then Dom, from seemingly out of nowhere, would produce this ridiculously sized old school cell phone. I mean, like boombox size. And he would put it up to his ear and start screaming, "Hello, hello, no, I'm on a lift. I'm in church." Like, and just at the top of his lungs, screaming like he was having a conversation. And um, it was so funny watching people's reactions. Now that is kind of borderline of what I would call a prank. I don't think it is once I once I describe to you what I think pranks are. Maybe you'll see it my way. But that's one of those things. Like I'm telling you, there's no like Einsteinian method to differentiating these things. It's more you gotta feel it, man. And Dom didn't do a lot of stuff that would disrupt somebody's day. I mean, obviously, if you're at mass and you're screaming, that's kind of shitty. But for the most part, his stuff was just to get reactions because you'd be going about your normal daily business and there would be some absurdity. Like I mentioned in the last episode about the snail costume at the crosswalk or the cat burglar thing. He would do things like in a public forum, open space, there would be this giant trash receptacle and it would say, large plastic animal return. And just that alone is very bizarre and kind of weird. But like people would just be staring at that and trying to like piece it together. And then suddenly somebody would come up with like a large plastic reindeer and chuck it in there. Like, oh, yep, there's another one. And, go off about their way. And like those couple of moments of just subtle humor is really fascinating to me. He had one where in the same type of venue, that's a huge touristy area. He would have like a desk set up, and it would say like tourist information, and so people would come over there, and they would ask him like, "Hey, where's the museum?" And he'd be pointing around and these people would be looking because they really want to go to this museum, and then he would like make up some weird language and start talking and people would just be left there and they'd just sit there and smile at him. It just funny stuff like that, just not taking things too seriously. uh yeah, dude, the plastic animal thing is just so bizarre. I think he did it more than once. Just genius level stuff in such a simple package. Um, and he was really, I would say, the founder of that type of stuff. I mean, for me at least, I know there's probably other tongue-in-cheek things like that happened before, but that was at least where I was first exposed to it. There's another guy. I really wish I knew his name. My buddy Brandon found on social media, and I usually hesitate when Brandon sends me stuff because I mentioned pranks. I despise pranks. Brandon really loves them, and that's fine. No accounting for taste. But so when he sends me these things, a lot of times it's pranks. But I was glad that I opened this one up, and I fell in love with this dude. That's weird. I really fell in love with his content, guys. He's probably the best that I've ever seen do drive-through pranks. or excuse me, pranks, drive-through bits. You know, you're not really disrupting somebody if you go through the drive-through, as long as you're not like ordering a milkshake and then throwing it back at them. Um, they have to take your order, they have to be there, and when you drive off, they just go on to the next guy. And he would drive around to the window and he'd be like, he would say these absurd things, but he would do it in such like a routine interaction type of way that you would, by the time you thought about it, you'd already be helping him out in like a customer way, and then the hook was sunk and or set. He'd like come up to the window and he'd be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry that I didn't talk into the thing back there. He goes, I can't see out of my brown eye, but can you tell me what all type of condiments I could get on a hamburger?" And at that point, the person's like, "Oh, okay, you know, did he just say his brown eye?" And like they're going through the menu, you know, oh, you get mustard, relish, ketchup, ranch, and then he like while they're focused on that, trying to help him, he'd just drive off. And again, it sounds simple and stupid, but it's hilarious because then they like stick their head out the window, like, what the hell? And then the next person just drives up, and then they gotta, oh, well, I gotta, you know, take care of this person. So just that quick, really like thoughtful bit that he put together there in those like few sentences that he would interact with these people, and he did all sorts of them. I really wish I could come up with his name. Um, Maybe Zach knows who I'm talking about. Not sure. If I do find it, I'll make sure to post it in the comments after this video uploads. You could even say that some of our old footage, well, I mean, quite a bit of our old footage falls into this territory of filming. Nate was really good at this. One bit that comes to mind is we went to the one of the lakes around the area where we grew up, and there was this family having a a picnic, and Nate was walking by on the sidewalk, and the dad, you know, acknowledged his existence. Hey, how's it going? Oh, good day. Yeah, yeah. And then they turned to go back to their meal, and then Nathan just completely spazzed out. He like had like this, you know, tart attack or whatever, and uh, just went berserk and ran off into the distance. And the father gave like the best reaction I've ever seen. He was just flummoxed. He was looking at his family and he stands up and he's trying to find where Nate's going, and it was just like there's no rhyme or reason to why people would do that, you know. But nobody got hurt. Nobody was um, set back in any way. It was just you're going about your life, and then this absurdity happens. You react to it, and you know, you just keep going. Meow thing in Super Troopers. Yeah, that's funny. Uh-huh. That's a good example, Zach. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. Who did that? Was it Broken Lizard? Those guys are pretty hilarious. But I haven't seen the second Super Troopers. But the the first one, yeah, that meow bit was really good. I suppose I should touch on pranks. So, um, Zach mentioned up in the chat a little bit. I think he said something about difference between disruption and interruption, and that's a fairly good way to put it. If you're out in public, of course you have to deal with other people in public, but I think if you make it your mission, which is mainly what pranks are, uh, to actually disrupt somebody rather than just get like a quick reaction, I think that you're kind of a piece of shit. Um, Now, in Jackass, I said, you know, in Jackass Forever, they prank each other. That's an unwritten contract. If you're on set with them, you know it's going to happen. And that's different. But um, if you're just out minding your own business and then somebody stops you from doing that, I have a problem with that. An example is this one group is, oh shit, a third Super Troopers. That's interesting. I guess I'll have to catch up on that. Um, this one group, they would film outside of like a coffee shop, and people would walk out with their drinks, and then one of the dudes would go up to them and smack it out of their hand. and then just like run around. And they were obnoxiously fast, so nobody was catching them. Now, yeah, at the end they would purchase the person's drink and give them a new one. But the fact is, like, you don't, somebody could be on their lunch break or something, or just, going through some shitty thing and you basically assault them. I don't like that because, as I've mentioned, time is important. And time is one of the three resources we have as human, but it's the only one that we can't get back. We have time, we have energy, and we have capital, or, money, currency. Uh, and interestingly, you need time to get the others back, or at least time to get more energy. You go to sleep, right? But that takes time. I can't just go spend $10 and get a minute of time back. So when you do something to fuck with someone's time, I take issue with that. And again, you could say that Dom Jolly in the snail costume scooting across the crosswalk is fucking with someone's time, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I think though, if you watch that and you watch somebody knocking a Starbucks drink out of somebody's hand, potentially getting them a mess, they probably don't have a change of clothes on them. I think you can see the distinction there. Another thing this group would do is people would be out listening to music with wired headsets, and they would come by and cut the cord. And, I have a huge issue with that because, yeah, it might just be a stupid headset, but what if that was like, I don't know, in an extreme case, grandma's last gift to you, and you wanted to, yeah, there's better options, but that meant something to you. Sure, you could get it, you could, fix it, but that's just fucking with someone, and I don't like that. Sure, I laughed, but it's like the Buddhist principle, right? The two darts. You can't really control the first dart or your reaction to the first dart, but you can with the second. And so at first watch, it might seem humorous, but after you kind of take in what's going on, it's like, oh man, these guys are actually assholes. Again, they would oftentimes upgrade your gear, like they'd give you like the latest AirPods or whatever. But still, I just think going out of your way to screw with someone is just dirtbag shit, really. And I don't find it funny, and I don't like overall funny. I don't classify that under the umbrella of this type of stuff. I think I think that's a whole other thing. And I know with social media blowing up over the years, pranking has become this huge thing. And again, I think there's one account that is like a husband and wife. They do that stuff, but they've agreed on it. I still think a little bit of that is gratuitous, but um, it's something falls short with me on that stuff. I think they made quite a living out of doing it, if I remember correctly, but still, I'll accept that more than just screwing with random people. Um, but yeah, don't think that pranks or are something that I classify in this. If I haven't made it clear, I hate pranks. But yeah, you won't see that with us. But to get back to the categories, I think the last category I'll use us to describe, and I think that's, I don't really have a name for it, so I'm just going to go into it. IWAC and even idiovision are built on three core legs. We do stunts, we do skits, and we do something in between that I don't have a good word for, so I call it skunts. Um, a stunt would be something like, you know, setting up a pile of boxes and you and your dumb friend jump off the roof into said pile of boxes. You're not really getting a public reaction. Stunt would be running full speed into the big tree in your yard. You're not getting a public reaction. Of course, you're going to get your dumb friends laughing at you and probably picking on you, but it's not. That's not the purpose. The purpose is just to film some like extreme absurdity. A skit, on the other hand, would be more like, I think, like I said, Jackass calls it man on the street. It's like whatever Dom Jolly would do. Um, That you're just trying to get a reaction. You wear a cast on your or a sling on your arm and you're riding a scooter and you whoa whoa and you like fall over and then see how people react. Um, you're just trying to get a reaction in passing. The camera is kind of hidden at that point. You're not really supposed to see the camera. A skunt could be, that sounds gay. It could be anything in between. So like one example would be if I don't know if it's on Jackass Forever or if it's on 4.5, but they did something called the Dum Dum Game. Johnny Knoxville. It has production, but it also has you're not really necessarily going for extreme stunt or public reaction, but there's a bit of production to it and like an overlap. Johnny Knoxville dressed up as like a game show host, and they did this whole themed out like we're gonna ask you trivia questions, and if you get them wrong, and they'd slap each other, or this device would go off and hit the guy in the nuts, and there was an audience and whatnot. But it was mainly a production value. Another example of that would be like the throwback video that I posted, the laundry basket down the stairs. It's more of a stunt in a public place, but you're kind of trying to mix things. You're trying to get a reaction, but also just do this crazy thing. So those are kind of the three pillars that we built our stuff on. But what separated us is, at least I think, was we did everything through a lens of respect. If you didn't want to do something, we weren't there to force you to do it. We also weren't there to bully you into it. There's an interview that Danger Aaron, who I think he's arguably my favorite Jackass member. The older I get and the more I let these videos marinate with me, I think Danger Aaron was special, and they were lucky to have him. Pretty much anything he does or gets is gold. I liken Zach kind of to Danger. Anytime Zach's on the camera, he pretty much steals the show. I mean, how could he not with a physique like his? But yeah, Zach just gets great footage all the time. And that was Danger. Um, but they really bullied him, and I think, like I was saying I think it's a podcast, Steve-O's podcast, maybe Wild Ride. He was on there, and he, I think he mentioned that there was quite a bit of hazing and quite a bit of um, pressure to do things, and even doing things against his will. And he got hurt pretty bad. I think he's broken his back, broken his neck. There's a scene where he yeah, Zach's a memorable guy. I mean, just look at the last video that we did together, Waterloo tripping. I mean, man, Zach was one of the stars of that. Um, but there's a scene with Danger where it's like Lamborghini tooth pull, and they basically pull out a perfectly healthy tooth that he has. They tie a string to his tooth and a string to a Lamborghini, and he bam drives full bore, and out comes Aaron's tooth. But Aaron cracked his skull from like where the tooth set up to the eye socket with that bit. Like that's gnarly, and that probably could have been prevented if it wasn't for hazing or bullying people into doing things. We would never do that. There might be some friendly encouragement. I'm hoping to share this video with you, but I'll talk about it. There's a clip that we did back in the day called Zach versus the Tray. We encouraged Zach to do it, but we didn't like bully him into it. And we were like, "Oh, Zach, come on, get up there, you can do it." And he did, and he got one of my favorite clips of all time. Unbeknownst to him, in the clip, he goes, "Oh, this is stupid," and then proceeds to get hurt in a very funny way. Like I said, hopefully I could show that to you guys here coming up soon. But respect was always paramount for us. We're friends after all. We're not enemies. We're not people that we don't know. And I think that also built a camaraderie between us that translated on the screen. Of course, we had camaraderie because we grew up together. But when you have genuine connections with these people, uh, you can make some pretty good magic on screen. Like me and John were talking about in one of our podcasts, you have to have fun with it, and it really shows through when the people on screen and the people in the production are having fun, and you as a viewer also feel more connected. If you just see like people hazing somebody all the time, you might be connected because you really feel for that person, but it generates a sense of emotion that I think is unwanted in a way. As you get kind of angry, like why are they doing this? I really feel for this guy. Uh, Covert bullying of Zach. Never. Um, and I suppose that's something that we're definitely gonna, I suppose definitely, that's kind of a contradiction. But we're definitely gonna continue that with idiovision. And so what is the difference between IWAC and idiovision? What separates them? Why are they both on my channel? What's happening is confusing. IWAC is where it all began. That's what the lion's share of episode 1 was about. An idiot in his thoughts, that is. Talking about where this all began. And IWAC was the vessel that we were riding, so to speak. From 2003 to 2008, before I left my hometown, that was the IWAC era. And over the years from 2008 until recently, probably about 2023, 24, we had very sporadic contact. Some of my friends and I stayed in better contact than the others, but for the most part, the IWAC crew kind of fell off. We didn't really communicate much. Life had taken us in very different directions. But recently, we've rekindled the flame, and of course, filming is something that unites us. And it's a product of our friendship. But it also happens to be like my passion, the thing that I love most, outside of people, of course. And so naturally, it was just going to come up. So getting the crew back together was a huge priority of mine, and not all of us were on board. And the most integral part of that, of IWAC, despite the efforts and the contributions that others have, is me and Nathan. If me and Nate aren't there in a certain capacity, then there is no IWAC. We started this together, and we ended it together. So trying to pull that into the present was difficult, but it was some challenge that I was bound and determined was going to happen. Maybe disrespectfully so, maybe I wanted it more than I was listening to everybody. But we have, gone back and forth about, oh, well, what name should I call this then? And IWAC always comes to the forefront. But like I was talking about with the bands, if the essence changes, then the band is not the same, in my opinion, and I lost sight of that for a little while. But as I said, I came full circle with it, and am very happy to, I thought I'd never say this, not be calling our new stuff IWAC. But that left us with the the really hard quest of finding a new name. And so I was racking my brain for a long time what to call this new venture. And originally I'd settled on Dumb TV. I thought that was a really cool name, but some people that I value their opinions very highly, it didn't sit well with them. And then I started doing some research online and I found this group in India. I don't know if you call it a group, this account from India called Dumb TV. And I think they repost a lot of like CCTV type stuff. Just cameras around India that capture rather just odd things that happen, and then they post it, and it's Dumb TV. So I was like, well, I think that account had like some absurd amount of followers, and I'm like, well, we can't be biting off of that. So I abandoned that, and then I don't really know how. One name that I was considering was Half Cocked, but yeah, you could see where that one might go off the rails. But then I'm not really sure how I came up with idiovision. I think it was just frustration, and kind of like how IWAC was bred from frustration. Um, I just wanted to create an homage to IWAC, but also have something that was different. So it's basically two words. I mean, it's not rocket science here, but like idiot and television, and I smashed them together to get idiovision. Idiot is, or idio is an obvious, hearken to IWAC, idiots with a camera. And then the television part is also a kind of like behind the scenes throwback to IWAC. Because at one point, me and Nate were considering going in a different direction as far as like what we were going to be filming. I think it was around the time we were considering getting on public broadcasting. So we wanted to have like a more commercially, I guess, accepted name. So I think that's how it was. I don't know, but we started calling ourselves Stunt TV for a while, and that lasted all of about 4 bits, and then we were like, no, screw this. We're IWAC is just the best name ever. So the television part is, uh, kind of a nod to Stunt TV, and then I like the fact that we're using contemporary equipment, but it's not like state of the art. Like the K and J show, aka the greatest show of all time, is filmed on like a Hollywood level camera. We stream it on like basically the same type of camera that they film blockbuster movies on. It's rad. I mean, it's obviously better than this webcam that I'm using. I mean, it better be, right? But it's really great footage. But I like the raw, more home video style of footage. So that's where the TV comes from, and it's like a tube TV. It's not, at least that's what it's supposed to be in this shoddy logo that I've come up with. It's not like your flat screen. So everything is kind of a nod to the old school. And the footage that we're getting now is good, like as far as clarity and quality goes. I don't know if this is gonna translate, but like this is the camera that I can't do this. It's like mirrored. This is the camera that we filmed pretty much everything in the Waterloo tripping video on. It's this tiny, tiny little thing. Um, I think MSRP at the time when it came out, and whatnot, and for years was like $200. They don't, it's discontinued, so of course I bought like 3 of them. Um, but it's just, it's basic, it's simple, but it gives you that home video feel, which is, I think, tantamount of the homegrown scene. But without sacrificing clarity. Like if you watch that throwback video that I posted, that's 20 years ago, and it's cool because it's like watching a time capsule. But if you watch a lot of that footage, it can be really hard because it's a square, choppy, uh, just really awful quality. Did not stand the test of time. There is a beauty about it, and I do love that quality. But if shameless plug, go watch Waterloo Trippin', and you'll get a better idea of the quality that we're going to be dealing with going forward. And then also, like, I'm not a professional editor by any means, so there's not like perfection in the transitions or perfection in the length and the beats of each scene. But I also think that throws back to the just what we want, the homegrown feel. And so idiovision then is only different than IWAC in time and place. Um, idiovision hopefully will do justice to and carry the torch of IWAC, uh, where we stand on those three legs of stunts, skits, and skunts, and all wrapped in a package of respect. And I think that you can bring that to this genre of filming and have something magical. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, as I said, Nathan and I were raised fire and brimstone Protestant. So while we were rebelling against our roots, they still ran deep, and we didn't want to um, well, fuck with people too much, you know. In our youth, we probably messed with people a little more than we would now, and that's another challenge of video vision. Is it still funny? I think it is. We just have to be careful what we do now because we're approaching 40, and there's a little different leniency with a 15-year-old and a 40-year-old. So that's a fun challenge to try to come up with bits that still hit, but are also not going to land us in prison. And I think I'm encouraged by all that. I even if nobody else that I show the videos to finds joy out of it, it's a record. It's a look into our time, and I still 20 years later go through all our footage that we got when we were kids and have fond memories doing of what we did, where we were at. Time and place is huge, and right now this is the present, but we're getting philosophical. In another 20 years, it's going to be like me right now looking at our early 2000 footage. So in 2040, that's what this footage is going to be like. So seeing like where we're at. I mean, at that point, I think my body is probably going to be done with this, but I don't know. We'll see. Um, so what's next for idiovision? I've talked about Zach and I are putting together a thing, and what that thing encompasses. Originally, it was supposed to be because we had this idea of doing a Kickstarter. Maybe that'll get us, recognition and get us out there. We never really know where we're going as far as like the public eye. We just would like to share this with people. So, we have all this footage from the past that is, more or less lock and key. It'll trickle out slowly, but it's not something that really shows where we're at now. The best thing that we have now is just the little antics that I filmed or that we filmed when I was in New York visiting my hometown. And that video is super special to me. I laugh at it when I see it just because basically 20 years has passed since I've seen all these dudes, and we're all, I think, a lot larger than we were. Um, and it's funny that we're still doing the same nonsense. But we need more than just that. We need like something with direction. So we need to show people like what we're about. And so me and Zach concocted this idea to do this proof of concept trailer thing. And we were originally shooting for like 10 to 15 minutes. But I think between the more I write ideas for the film, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a feature length out of it. And to me that's 90 minutes. I think that's like the perfect length. You should feel honored, not attacked, Zach. I think that's like the perfect length for a feature a feature length production in this type of stuff. You don't want to sit there for hours and hours watching. I mean, I could, um, but just between like new takes on old ideas, ideas that we haven't been able to film, and then on new things that we're writing, I think it's going to be quite a bit longer than just 15 minutes, and I'm happy about that. Zach and I are trying to link up to get the California portion of filming underway. That should happen, shoot, within 2 months now. So we're trying to figure out good days for that, where a large portion of the footage should be shot. And then, there's people out here who are interested in working on the project, not necessarily like full-on idiovision members, but uh, they're excited to film, and that's always encouraging when you find people who will do this stuff. And then at some point, hopefully being able to go to New York and film out there again. Uh, that will be really cool because that's where pretty much the core of the old crew is. And then some people who uh, are dumb by association, I guess, and have expressed interest in wanting to film. So we should be able to get pretty much everything filmed this year, and hopefully by the end of it, I can edit together a cool video and keep you updated on all that. And I can't wait to share what we put together with you guys. I mean, that's the payoff, right? That's the ticket. Being able to share in our pain, and pain is used loosely. Being able to just laugh at the human condition, I think, is integral to making it to the next day. Um, I mentioned Kickstarter. Uh, I still don't think that's off the table, but not for this first uh, production, anyways. For the next one, yes. I think that's the route we'll go. Because in order, I think, to run a successful Kickstarter, you got to have something to show, something that people can see, like what you guys are about. And right now, we don't have that much footage. So this project will also hopefully open the door for future projects. Um, you start out in these things really naive. I'm like, oh, we're adults now. We have money. We can fund this. So I contacted some pretty big names in their respective business. Um, and I was like, oh, it won't be that expensive to get them on board. But it wasn't that I wasn't trying to pay them what they were worth. I just miscalculated their value. And so that was my error. But we were given quotes for different ideas that we had, and it was definitely not a budget that you could just pull out of your back pocket, at least not working stiffs like us. So if there's an interest in filming or in this type of filming, we would open that up so we could get funded to bring those ideas to life. Um, and I think the people who bring their specific skill sets to the table need to be compensated properly. And the quotes that we got were not obscene. They weren't like, oh my God, this guy's just trying to milk us here. It was very itemized out, and everything was true. I think it would have been proper to pay them that, and I think that that might have even been a very low ball estimate. So maybe inadvertently they were already doing us a favor, but they need to be compensated. So if we can generate um, interest, then we will most likely take the next project to Kickstarter so we can add some really interesting some bits, some more, I guess, more extreme. We were in talks with Gary LeFew, and that's the guy who did all the bull stuff for the Jackass movies. And you know, he was very reasonable with what he wanted, but we just our budget just was completely we misunderstood, I guess, is the best way to describe it. So, you know, being able to do stuff with bulls would be fantastic. Um, I think the wives involved might try to stop it, but I think they've come to terms with who they're dealing with. But Gary's getting up there, man. I think he's 81, 83, somewhere around there. So we're gonna have to get it together pretty quickly. But either way, I think that this is going to be a lifelong project for us, or a lifelong passion that we chase. And we always, you know, look forward to sharing with you guys whatever we get. I think that more or less covers what I wanted to go over today. Um, if you have any questions, comments, you know, circulating a petition to get me off the air, let me know now before we sign off. Otherwise, you can post them in the comments in the video once it uploads. But again, I really appreciate you guys spending time with my ramblings. Thank you, Jonah. I appreciate your support, man. Glad that you were able to come here and spend some time. Like I said, time is important, and it's not lost on me, and it means a lot. And I hope you guys. What's today? Wednesday. I hope you guys are having a good week. I hope that the week continues to be good. I know Friday is going to be good for Jonah. Um, and yeah, look forward to seeing you guys here next time. Thank you for stopping by. And as always, sláinte.